Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Ryan in Singapore. Welcome to our mindfulness practice. Today's topic is about the meditation retreat that I just came back from. I came back from a retreat in New York, in upstate New York, with Jon Kabat-Zinn, and it is a retreat with Jon Kabat-Zinn, yes, but it is also a meditation retreat. So what I wanted to share with you today was some of the things that happen for me that I have noticed as a meditator who goes on retreats sometimes, that some of the same things that happened in a previous retreat have happened this time. And I think that's really interesting that I am able to use some of the experience in my past retreats to feel more comfortable in what's happening. And what I discover is anytime that I'm on retreat, maybe the first 1 or 2 days or even 3 days feels fresh and feels relaxing, and it's kind of good to be quiet and to settle into my time of quieter mind. But as that time in meditation retreat goes on, of course, there's no stimulation, right? There's no talking, there's no reading, there's no writing, there's no phones, of course. So in this kind of real space of real, true silence, what is it that begins to happen? And I am a dopamine addict, probably like everybody else these days is, and I love and crave stimulation. And so what happens to me pretty much in fact, as I reflect back, every single retreat around that time, around kind of the day number 3, is that without my consent, my mind is desperately trying to entertain itself. And so it's really, no more TV, no more screen, no more chatting on even on Insight Timers circles or groups. It means that my mind is craving some kind of stimulation. And what tends to happen is that my mind comes up with some kind of stimulation. And it arrives in the form of thinking. It arrives in the form of fantasizing. And it's just, all kinds of new scenarios start to pop up in my mind that weren't present previously, and that I tend to find that all kinds of little scenarios show up, and some of them are sometimes I get a bunch of ideas. And I guess what I do find, the common thread, is that most of what's going on is projection into the future. And it can be projection into the near future. It can be projection into, a few weeks later. Sometimes I find myself thinking about what I'm going to talk about next time I'm on Insight Timer, on a live event. Sometimes I find like I'm going to tell someone back home like what I got out of this retreat. And maybe quite interestingly, in the Jon Kabat-Zinn retreat, because I was with Jon Kabat-Zinn, I found that my mind would go forward to things that I wanted to say inside of the retreat. So when the sharing time came, and it's a room of 200 people, right? And so when it came time to talk about, well, what happened for you during this meditation, I found that I was often projecting forward. And the theme of the stories was always about me. And I found that I was the common character in my projections into the future. That there was always something that I wanted to share about myself and my experience, and that felt very important and very pressing in the moment. Like, hey, like this is something important that I want to say. And part of me as well wanting to be recognized by Jon Kabat-Zinn, right? For Jon to be able to have some kind of dialogue with Jon Kabat-Zinn directly. And maybe in private, maybe in front of everyone. But I found that actually being on retreat with Jon Kabat-Zinn posed that new problem of me really wanting to say something, to be recognized by the person that I consider to be my teacher, even though I had never met him before the retreat. And so this was the common thread. And I think this is also interesting in that my experience in thoughts in general, when in or outside of meditation, very often my thoughts are come in the form of a future conversation. So it's something that the way that I think is like it's a couple hours later and I'm talking to someone, and that's kind of how my thoughts are solidifying. So maybe I'm talking to someone, but most of the time my thoughts are about projecting into the future about a future conversation that I want to have. And by the way, what I discovered in this retreat is that 95+% of those conversations never actually happen. That this is just the way that my thoughts manifest. And I thought that was very interesting. And I wanted to bring it up to you as well, because I kind of thought to myself, I'm like, is this common? I've never read anything about it. I haven't talked to anyone about it. And so I thought maybe it's an interesting time to approach you, the Insight Timer meditation community. Do you find that your thoughts also manifest as future conversations that you want to have with someone? Is this a way that, it's like this thing that's happening to me right now is so important that I really feel like I want to share it with someone else. And I think that's what was so interesting about being in front of Jon Kabat-Zinn, because, maybe I wanted to say, hey, Jon, I have 19,000 followers on Insight Timer. Check out my YouTube channel. I think there was part of me that really wanted, that was really somehow seeking validation, because I found that I was sitting in front of the person that I consider to be my teacher. Even like I said, even though I had never met him before. And I think that was interesting to see all of those thoughts coming up. And, and in fact, I even was fantasizing about writing down my email address to passing it to him, or, his son was also on the retreat. Was also leading the retreat, so Jon Kabat-Zinn and Will Kabat-Zinn. And so I had a lot of these projections about things that and not just about how great I am, although that was part of it. That was part that I saw coming up a lot, was that seeking validation, was like, am I doing the right thing? Do I I need a little pat on the head from the person whose material that I teach, right? That MBSR, it really is, and I've said it many times, the foundation of my mindfulness teachings. And Jon Kabat-Zinn's the creator of MBSR, so it's maybe natural for me to go, hey, am I doing this right? Whereas, as I step away from a retreat, and by the way, I stayed silent for the entire retreat. I never talked to Jon. I didn't write anything down. I didn't write any notes to pass. I didn't, in the end, seek that, actually take action, because every time, and I think I've I've chatted about this before as well, is that, thoughts precede speech and thoughts precede action. So anytime that we have a thought, there's always some chance for us to choose what is it that we're going to do with that thought, if anything at all. And rationally, as those thoughts were coming, I've kind of realized, one, I don't need to say anything in front of all of these people. And if I do want to say things in front of all of these people, is it because it's potentially helpful for all of those people, or is it mostly self-serving? And every time I examined that thinking more closely, almost always I came to that conclusion that this is a self-serving thing. This is something that I'm doing to feed my own ego, so it's not something that I really feel that I should be bringing up in front of everyone. And even some of these conversations that I thought I would want to have with Jon Kabat-Zinn one-on-one, just looking at how many people wanted to talk to him, I just kind of went, really, who does this serve, wanting to do this? So that's really what I was seeing, and I wanted to share that with you, that my thoughts were very, very regularly, and I noticed it in the last retreat too that I was on a year ago, that my thoughts were almost always about something I wanted to say in the future. Very ego-centered, very much about me, and most of the time, 95% of the time, I don't end up saying it. And it's interesting that that's how my thoughts process, is through that. And it's funny, as I'm saying all of this, I do feel a little bit vulnerable to share this. And I hope that you will feel comfortable in this space to share, to be vulnerable, and to share whatever, how your meditation practice goes, what you observe about yourself. Jean had written in the chat before, a little while ago, about how a lot of the other teachers on Insight Timer, they teach a lot of different things, but that mindfulness really is kind of the foundation. And I think that's, I mean, that resonates with me so much, and that you can't begin to go on your journey if you don't first know where you are. And that's really what mindfulness is. It's a way for us to cultivate and strengthen the relationship we have about ourselves, to foster this kind of self-awareness and self-knowing. So thanks for listening. I'm going to go ahead and get into our practice, and I love the fact that the chat is really active. I encourage you to hang on until the end of the meditation today, because I am going to go through this chat and talk about what it is that everybody else is talking about, and would encourage you to write whatever it is that's coming up for you today in the chat, and we'll chat about it when the meditation's over. So let's get into our practice. So find yourself in your comfortable meditation posture. And so I'm just kind of automatically moving my head back and forth, because as I sit up straight, I can feel a little bit of tension in my neck and in my shoulders. So I'm going to roll my shoulders a few times, just gently. I would encourage you to sit up straight and tall, to bring your back away from the backrest if you're sitting on a chair or a sofa. come towards the edge of the chair or the sofa so that you can support yourself with your own core muscles, your abdominal muscles, your lower back muscles, if that is conducive for you. You know, some of us, our backs don't have the strength to support themselves, and that's okay as well. If you like, allowing your eyes to close, I would encourage you to become aware of the muscles in the face. Do you find tension in the eyebrows? If you do, see if your awareness of that tension can allow your eyebrows to relax. Notice the sensation in the jaw. Are your teeth clenched? If so, see if you can bring your jaw, just let your jaw relax a little bit, at least to the point that the teeth are no longer touching. Seeing if you can keep your lips closed. Breathing through the nostrils. Noticing gravity pulling down on the body. So this kind of communication that our bodies always have with this planet that we live on. So Earth's gravity pulls down on us, pulls us towards the center of the earth. We can feel the consequences of that in our spinal column. We can feel it in our buttocks, where our buttocks make contact with our cushion or our chair. Can you tune your awareness dial all the way up to notice the subtle difference in the pressure across the buttocks? So some areas we experience more pressure. And then pressure tapers off at some point as well. The chair or cushion no longer touches the buttocks. And then in that area, you can still feel the contact of your clothing. So how does the sense of touch work? How do we know the change, the difference in pressure from one area to the next? So it's kind of this mystery of Earth's gravity, our constant communication with the Earth through the pull of gravity. And then the mystery of how our nervous system works. How pressure turns into signals that tell us about these physical sensations that we're experiencing. So feel the pressure. Feel wherever else in the body is in contact with a supporting surface as we experience gravity in this moment. Feeling the arms, the hands, wherever you've chosen for your arms and hands to be today. gravity pulling down. Seeing if we can just allow the shoulders, the arms, the hands to relax. And now I'll invite you to bring your attention to the abdomen. So we may have been observing tension as we've examined the body. Notice here, is there any tension in the abdomen or the abdominal muscles? Sometimes the tension in these muscles can restrict our breathing. See if you can intentionally be aware of that tension if it's there. And through that awareness, maybe the tension in the abdomen relaxes all by itself. And then you can feel your breath in the abdomen. The expansion of the belly as you breathe in. The release as you breathe out. So seeing if you can hold your attention here. Be aware that the belly never stops moving as you breathe. As long as you don't take control of your breath, as long as you allow the body to do the breathing, you'll find that this gentle motion of breath never stops. It's like waves coming into the beach. Inhaling, followed by exhaling, followed by inhaling, followed by exhaling. And even now, as I observe when my mind wanders away from my breath, I find my thoughts going towards what I'm going to say next. So doing my best to let go of those thoughts, to focus on the feeling of breathing right here, right now. And now the time is coming for us to draw our practice to its close. So I'm going to ring the bell 3 times, and after the sound of the bell subsides completely, feel free to open your eyes and to move around in any way you like. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for practicing with me. Thanks for being here with each other. That meditation went extremely fast for me today. I couldn't believe that, that 15 minutes went so quickly. Hi, Siffy. Welcome. Great to have you. Now I'm going to have a look at the chat. Jean says, I'm going up to. It says, would that be considered striving? And unfortunately, this has been so long. This was 22 minutes ago, so I don't know what you were referring to, Jean, when you asked that. So if you like, you can write more about that. Something else Jean had said is, sometimes right in our meditations, I'll be thinking about what I want to share about my meditation practice. Thanks so much, Jean. And that makes, obviously resonates with me a lot. I do think about that kind of stuff a lot. And starstruck a little bit, and I have to say that was one thing that was pretty interesting. Was I remember when Jon Kabat-Zinn walked into the room for the first time, there was maybe 1 or 2 seconds of this feeling of this very excited feeling that I had, like, wow, hey. John's, it's so stupid to say, right? John's a real person. Wow, look there. There's Jon Kabat-Zinn. He's real. I remember, I met Nadine in Hong Kong once, right? Nadine happened to be in Hong Kong, and we met up for a coffee. And by the way, let me know if you're coming to Singapore. We can meet up for a coffee. But that Nadine said the same thing to me. She's like, "Wow, look, wow, you're a real person." And I'm like, yes, I am. But I can totally relate to that, because that's exactly how I felt in that moment. Like, look, there's Jon Kabat-Zinn. He's a real person, and it was pretty interesting too to like close my eyes. Or to open. There was a time that I opened my eyes during the meditation because I was hearing John's voice, right? John was leading the meditation, and it was like unbelievable to me that I was sitting in front of Jon Kabat-Zinn, right? And so I like opened my eyes just to like, it's like to pinch myself that I'm really there. And what was funny was that John was looking at me right at the moment that I opened my eyes. So it felt kind of awkward. Right, that I made eye contact with John right in the middle of the meditation. It was quite funny. But I was in a spot that I was pretty close to the front, so I saw, so I really experienced being with Jon Kabat-Zinn quite a lot, which I kind of feel kind of embarrassed talking about it in a way, because I really was starstruck in some kind of way. And by the way, I want to talk about that more next time. Because what's it like to meet your hero? The people say you should never meet your hero. Like, why is that? And I have a few things to talk about on that, and you know, I'll save that until next time because I've done a lot of talking here today already. Cece says, well, I think it's natural to want to interact with your teacher, not necessarily egotistical. Well, and you know what? And I look down here in the chat too, like Angela said, I think it would be different if you expressed your accomplishments and experience as a positive result of your learning from him, not to serve as a self-boast from you. And I guess I want to share that I had a lot of that as well, that I wanted, there was a lot of thinking about me going to Jon and going, oh, like my life has changed so much for the positive because of MBSR and because of secular mindfulness, et cetera, et cetera. So, I've had a lot of thoughts, again, all with the theme of coming back to me. I mean, even though that sounds less egotistical than seeking validation for my mindfulness teaching, it still has the same egocentric story of me. And I guess I wanted to share that about the teaching because that felt more egocentric. But I guess it's important to say that I also had that I wanted to say, hey, here are the great things. Here's what happened. Here's how mindfulness helped me through the dark periods of my life. Jon Kabat-Zinn, thank you so much for your help, but I mean, what I found was that there are just so many people who were talking to Jon about that and going, gushing a bit, and it kind of helped temper me to go, okay, well, I think like there's been a lot of this kind of talk already. Oh, Jon, I'm your biggest fan. I'm a one woman's like, I'm a Jon Kabat-Zinn fangirl. I'm just like, wow, this is, and again, this is something I want to talk about a bit more next time, because this was interesting to experience this, and what happens with this kind of adoration. So thanks, Jean, and thanks, Angela, both for bringing that up. But yeah, again, that projection into the future for me tends to come as things that I'm going to say to someone else about my experience. And Dirk says, your admiration, logical, and then meet him near. And Sybil says, not communicating must have been so hard. And what's interesting about not communicating was that, as well, is that the retreat was optional silent. And I have to say, out of 200 people, I think there was only me and 2 other people who remained silent for the entire retreat. And I did it because I knew I needed it to get the most out of the retreat. Because I've been practicing for long enough to know that's really helpful, that I'm going, that I set this time aside for retreat so that I can get the most out of it, that I really want, I need support. I need support here at home with my family. And I'm seeking this, I'm seeking this support to be able to let me go do this thing that helps me personally and also helps me as a teacher. I really feel I owe it to everyone that's supporting me to get the most out of that time as well. And I owe it to myself as well. So I'm going to stay silent even when everybody else is talking. And I did in the final day, because most retreats too, on the final day we break silence. I did chat a little bit with the people around me, but honestly, I was really happy just to get out of there and go to the airport and really let the experience be mine, instead of sharing with a bunch of strangers about what was going on for me. Although I did have somebody ask me about Insight Timer, and who knows, maybe they'll show up to one of these live practices one time. If you happen to meet me at the Jon Kabat-Zinn retreat, I'd love to hear from you in the chat, or send me a direct message. All right. Yeah, the ego and the monkey mind, says Angie. Sybil says, I like to share to make my thoughts real. And I'll agree with this. And again, so, not sharing in this particular case was exclusive to my experience. And I'm certainly not saying don't share during meditations or during I love the sharing in these live events is very helpful for a variety of reasons. And so, please do that. And something as a search inside yourself teacher that I can tell you is that writing something down and saying something out loud both help solidify that thing in your mind. So if you write it down, if you say it out loud, that can help you to be more likely to take action about that thing, and can again be helpful to solidify that experience that you've had in you for yourself, so that you can remember it, you can potentially take action on it. So please do. But for me, one of the main reasons that I didn't share was one, the environment of what was going on, what I observed about all of the other sharing, and two, that I really felt that it was important for me to stay in silence during that time. J.E. says, did other people get to speak to JKZ one-on-one, or were they just able to share afterwards in the group? So there were, and that, I guess that was another thing that stopped me from talking to Jon Kabat-Zinn one-on-one, was that pretty much every single time that our time together ended, people would come up and talk to Jon and Will, Jon Kabat-Zinn and Will Kabat-Zinn, and it came to the point that at one point on like day 3 or 4, Jon had to say, hey, everybody, can you please not come up to me after these sessions, because I have to eat lunch, I have to go to the bathroom, I have to do things that normal people have to do, right? I think people kind of forgot about that, right? And that can be and I guess I just empathized with Jon at that point and went, you know what? Like, whatever I have to say isn't so important that I need to stop Jon from going to the bathroom. After all, he's 80 years old, right? He needs, I'm sure he needs rest. He needs lots of things. He has a lot of physical needs, and I don't want to, I don't want to be troublesome. If there's something I desperately need to talk to Jon about, I'm sure that I can write at some point. I could write him a note in the retreat. I could write him, here now after this is after the retreat's over. Maybe I could write to Will Kabat-Zinn if I have something super important to say. Okay. Thanks, everybody, again. Robin says, I used to have a to-do lists in my mind. Now, after several years, it's much better. I still get monkey mind, but way better staying in the present, focusing on my breath. At times, I go to the future thinking, and at times, I go to past irritations. Thanks, Robin, for sharing. I still go to my to-do list, but again, I think one of the key differences is the awareness that it's happening. Jean says, it got cold overnight here, and I found more tension in my body than when it's warmer. My shoulders were scrunched up, my fingers and curled toes, and I had to concentrate on keeping myself from scrunching up. Thanks, Jean, for sharing. And that was something that I found in New York too, by the way, was that I came underprepared. That I didn't bring enough warm clothes, but fortunately there were a lot of blankets. So I brought my trusty my trusty handy dandy meditation blanket that that's one of my, what do we call it, artifacts or something, my totems. One of my totems is a reminder of love from other teachers. And there had a lot of other blankets there too that helped to keep me warm. And I would encourage you to try to stay warm during your meditation, because that will help you to stay a little bit more relaxed. Yeah, how exciting to meet my hero. And again, I'm excited to tell you next time a little bit more about that. Yeah, and I was hoping you would get a selfie with him. And I was kind of hoping for that too, but it was, you know what? It just felt really strange, honestly. And like when I thought about it and I looked at the situation, I wanted it. I wanted that selfie, and I wanted it entirely for selfish reasons, right? Maybe not, right? Maybe there was more, maybe there was something else that, some additional benefit of me having a photo of myself with Jon Kabat-Zinn, that isn't entirely selfish, but I did know there was a very big ego component on that. And I've seen photos of other mindfulness teachers with Jon Kabat-Zinn, and I don't know how I feel about it, and whatever it was, that opportunity is past. So, I guess sitting with Jon Kabat-Zinn for me, I wanted that to be enough, and not to need proof for other people that I have met Jon Kabat-Zinn. I think probably on the last day I probably could have brought my phone and taken a photo, but honestly, it just felt like even that idea felt super weird in that situation. Yeah, how do you feel when you first start talking again? Well, that's that's something I can talk about on another day. What's it like when you first start talking again on retreat? It's a bit weird, for sure. Thanks, CC, for your donation. JE says, I asked because I was once on a 2-day retreat and we could sign up for 15 minutes to talk to one of the teachers, but we weren't 200 people. Yeah, I think that's normal, in fact, that on retreat that we tend to have some time that most retreats, you if you're having some difficulty, you can sign up for a time slot with the teachers. I guess there's not enough support for this 200. And honestly, part of it too is because it's not really it wasn't meant to be a real a retreat where everyone was silent, so people could talk. There were stretches of silence, usually would be in the morning. We usually wouldn't be talking at breakfast. There was one day of total silence where nobody talks, but then afterwards, everyone could talk again. And I just chose to be silent for the whole time. Usually they call them interviews when you have a 20-minute stretch with the teacher, and that's usually so that you can just kind of discuss what's happening, because often when we go into those, especially if it's the first time, if you're going into a silent retreat, there's some weird's not the right word, but maybe some new stuff that happens inside your mind that you're not expecting, and you don't know what to do or how to deal with. And an interview with a teacher can be really helpful in knowing how to do that. Mindfulness calm. Dress up as your Khan. I think a Khan is what you mean to say there. Dress up as your favorite meditation teacher. Yeah. I'd be, who would I dress up as? Probably Ajahn Buddhadasa, maybe. I'd have to be a lot fatter, though. Maybe he have a fat suit or something. You'll always have your memories, Ryan. No real need for a selfie. Yeah. because I did the body scan, right? That was one of the moments that I was really looking forward to, because I always use Jon Kabat-Zinn's body scan guidance, right? So everybody like laid their mats out on the ground, so that like 200 people all lying down. It's like a sea of people lying down in the meditation hall, and so I lie down. I lay down and close my eyes, and we would go through the left foot and the left leg, and sure enough, and I was pretty jet lagged, right? Sure enough, I fell asleep. And then we got to like the shoulders, and I woke up, and I was just like, man, I feel like I've been waiting for like 5 years or more for Jon Kabat to like, wow, how great to lie down and like have Jon Kabat-Zinn lead me in a body scan in person, how great. And then I slept through most of it. So typical. Just shows like what your expectations and desires, and maybe I think that was for sure that was what was meant to happen for me for that. All right. Maybe that's why he was looking at you. You were snoring. And by the way, there were plenty of people. I don't think I was snoring. I don't typically snore, but there were people snoring during the body scan. And I think that's pretty normal. And John did say, he goes, if somebody's snoring and it's really bothering you a lot, you can feel free to give them a socially appropriate nudge to wake them up. He probably meant as well a non-judgmental, socially appropriate nudge, so that so that everybody wakes up. It doesn't bother you, right? I mean, fortunately, I think I've practiced enough that I can handle a room full of snoring while I'm meditating. It's interesting. Okay. It's been great sharing about all of this. I have to admit, today I feel more vulnerable than usual, just because I'm not used to. I guess I'm not that I don't share openly, but that I share something that ego. I don't know. Talking about my own ego feels unpleasant. I really don't like. I don't enjoy sharing those things, because I don't know. I think I want to be because I know why. I want to be the perfect meditation teacher. I want to be the perfect meditator, and I want to be the perfect meditation teacher. And neither of those two things exist. So naturally, when I try to strive for something that is impossible to achieve, I'm going to feel uncomfortable. And I guess that just shows that I also need to practice more. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, everybody. Okay, well, let us let's close practice the way that we do. Well, before I go, I will say I've got next week's fall break for my kids. So even though I've been away because of meditation retreat, I'll be away again. We're taking a little holiday trip for the kids. So I will be gone for another week, but I'll be back after that. I'll schedule my next live event soon, so that you'll know when that break period is. I'll be back about 47 hours from now. So we'll do the last piece of the retreat wrap up, and then we'll. I think the next topic I wanted to talk about is debriefing Inside Out 2, because there's some really great mindfulness lesson that I saw that I recognized there. So if you haven't seen that movie, I don't think I'm going to really give any spoilers, but maybe because what I'm going to talk about happens near the end of the movie. So it obviously is about anxiety, right? What's anxiety, and etc. So that's what we'll talk about when I come back from our holiday. Let's close practice the way that we do, with sending our well wishes out to ourselves and to everybody else. May I be happy and peaceful. May everyone watching, listening, wherever you are, I wish you all happiness and peace. And may all human beings everywhere, near and far, big and small, sick or well, imprisoned or free, may we all be happy and peaceful. All right. See you next time. Bye-bye.